What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I am an astrologer and musician, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank you so very much for being here, for making it to the end of this video, for checking out the other videos that I have on YouTube. Do you know that I run a podcast? It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts. You can find me on Patreon, where things come out early, where you can find a timing report to help you to time your life. If you have an important email that you want to send to a superior, or you want to take somebody on a first date, or even a 100th date or something like that, and you want it to go really well, there's a guide for timing those kinds of events. There's music on Spotify titled Pandora. Can't Help Myself is the name of this one. Hopefully there'll be a next one out soon. Thank y'all for being here. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So this week, we've got something, so it's interesting, right? So we are in many ways back looking at eclipse themes, right? So we've got the sun in Aquarius. And so the sun in Aquarius is hanging out with Saturn, and we've been talking about how very strong Saturn has been for a while. This is actually the time where the sun is going to get close enough to Saturn. I don't know if you've had the opportunity. I've been checking it out at sunset recently. I've been like going out and looking and trying to see that Saturn, because Saturn is now about to disappear under the beams of the sun. Saturn's already kind of dim, but then once the sun gets there, there's no seeing that Saturn. You'll still be able to see Venus for quite a while on the western horizon at sunset, but that Saturn is pretty well done for at this point. So as the sun gets closer to Saturn, we're also going to start to see the sun in Aquarius starting to make a square to Uranus and Taurus. So this is going to bring up all of those Saturn-Uranus things. For 3 years, we've been talking about Saturn in Aquarius square to Uranus and Taurus. Saturn in Aquarius wants to upgrade the management, the efficiency, the organization of things. We can think about technological innovation. We can think about stuff like technocracy, or bots running email threads, or not letting you into a certain website because you didn't choose the traffic lights, or this kind of thing, right? Aquarius can be strongly associated with all that sort of stuff. We can recall that, for example, the internet has Saturn in Aquarius, right? So there's been that portion, and then that's been square to Uranus and Taurus. Uranus, of course, is the one who deals with unexpected things, surprising things, things that sort of like move in unexpected directions, lightning bolts, breakups, breakdowns, breakthroughs, shakeups, this kind of thing. One of my favorite Uranus images is Jesus coming in the temple and kicking the table over because they were in there chilling a little too hard. This is that kind of energy, right? Uranus in Taurus has to do with the things that feel in the body, the things that are sort of like tangible, that are physical, that actually have to do with how you eat food and drink water and get your shelter and these kinds of things, right? Uranus is trying to shake all that stuff up, and that is in direct competition with whatever Saturn in Aquarius has been doing, right? So we've been talking about that for a long time. That's just a little recap there, but we are back on to that now with the sun moving into Aquarius and moving into a square with Uranus. And then actually we're coming into this full moon. So the full moon's actually not going to happen until next, is it Sunday or Monday or something like that? So technically it's supposed to be a part of next week's forecast. But where we're going with this is, and when that full moon happens, that's going to be at 16 degrees of Leo. That is exactly square to 16 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus, which is where the eclipse was back in November. So we're seeing that stuff come up another time. We're seeing a resurgence of these kinds of themes there. So whatever has been going on for you there, and we're at a point where, we want Saturn to be done with the Aquarius thing, right? And I keep talking about it as if we're winding down or something like that. But then I got a bunch of readings this week that were people with Saturn in super late Aquarius. And it's like, oh, you're like actually still on the crescendo. And in some cases, that's still going to be going on. Some of this like strong Saturn in Aquarius stuff is still going to be going on. This is one of those weeks where we're really going to be seeing that happen. But with Saturn waning in its power, Saturn is no longer visible in the sky, and Saturn is kind of like declining at this point, then we're likely to see Uranus looking much stronger in this sort of event space. And we can also see that Mercury in Capricorn is making a trine to Uranus and Taurus this week. That's not a super big deal. That's a one-day transit. I think that's today. But that's like, you know, that feeds some ideas and some like, you know, there's something communicative about that Mercury in Capricorn. There's something like kind of thrifty about it. And so Uranus is looking real good. Uranus is looking strong this week. We can remember that Uranus and Taurus is being ruled by Venus in Pisces. Venus loves to be in Pisces. This is one of Venus's favorite places to be. It is said that Venus is exalted in this position as if she is sitting up on a throne or something like this, up above all the rest, just loving the way that she gets down. Now, of course, we can remember that Venus in Pisces is also square to Mars in Gemini. That's the other thing that I've been getting a bunch of in my readings in the past couple of weeks or so, is that Mars retrograde in Gemini is still doing Mars retrograde things. It's not actually retrograde at this point. We're moving forward, but we're still so deeply in the shadow that we're still looking at, like, this is prime time for, because especially with Venus being the relational one, the one who wants to talk about harmony and cooperation and togetherness. So when Venus is exalted and able to do the Venus thing so splendidly, then we can often see the relationship stuff sort of like turning into something really big. But that square to Mars in Gemini, we're probably this is prime time for the deuterang. So the deuterang is like a boomerang for dudes that you threw away and then they came back, right? And I've seen so many clients with this recently, and we can definitely see those kinds of things going on. As I mentioned before, you could probably do something lusty with this Venus in Pisces square to Mars in Gemini, and that square is going to happen this week. So Venus is kind of catching up to that Mars. The whole time that Venus in Pisces is in Pisces, it's only a couple of weeks, but that whole time period, we'll have this like Mars square going on, but that's applying this week. That's getting closer. It's getting stronger. It's on the crescendo side of things right now. So we're going to see that Venus Mars showing up in some major ways, you know, especially so if Mars in Gemini is being ruled by Mercury in Capricorn, and Mercury in Capricorn is making a trine, a supportive and helpful aspect to Uranus and Taurus, then again, we can see some fodder for innovation here. We can see something that looks like it might be fun. It looks like it might be maybe a new way to communicate. Thinking outside the box in some kind of way, you know, especially if you are in a relationship spot where maybe you have a relationship, maybe you don't have a relationship. It like kind of doesn't matter a little bit. Like, this is a good time for you to revolutionize the way that you perform your communicative acts, right? So we can think about maybe communicating something different from what you have been communicating before. If you have a partner and you've got sort of like established routines, and maybe you've like fallen into a bit of a rut as to like what you say to them and what they say to you and what doesn't get said and this kind of thing, right? Maybe there's like a way that you can approach from another angle. Maybe you can say the thing that's been really on your mind. Maybe if you can't say that thing, then you can find another way to express it. Maybe you can write a letter and you hadn't done that before. I can't stop recommending the journal. The journal is so good at this time, especially to get clear on your thoughts, on your ideas, on what really matters to you, on your desires. If we're thinking with Venus here, right? There's super big desire energy when it comes to Venus. Venus is the one who attracts things. So if we're ever going to be, you know, in law of attraction land, which is like, you know, kind of dicey or whatever, but if you're ever in that space, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to attract the thing that like you really vibe with, that feels good to you and that sort of thing, then it's going to be important to get clear on your desires. Venus in Pisces is lovely with desire and everything, but not clear generally, right? We've got Neptune there as well. We've got a square to Mars who's been hella confused and wild for quite some time here. You know, with that sort of vibe here, it's going to take extra emphasis, extra focus, extra effort to really be clear about like, what do I want? And am I sure that I want that thing? If I got that thing, would I like it? You know, it's possible that you don't. And that is very worth digging into a little bit. I'm out of time here again. Check out ZamboniFunk.com. That's where all the stuff is. Check out the music and all the